Elon Musk is used to chaos. He doesn't innovate, he appends. Whether it's sending a rocket into space or tweeting something outrageous at 3 a.m., he's a master of commandeering the spotlight. That unpredictability served him well for years. It made him the face of innovation, the Iron Man of today. But more recently, the luster is beginning to wear off. Let's discuss the Cybertruck. It was going to be a revolution on wheels. A monster. A machine of the future. The type of car that turns heads, incites arguments, and makes everything else on the road seem like a toy. The buzz was unbelievable. Elon unveiled it on stage with bulletproof promises and a sledgehammer demonstration. People lost their minds. They put in pre-orders in bulk. They bought into the dream. But now, that vision is beginning to seem like a joke. Because the Cybertruck isn't taking over the roads like Tesla advertised. It's not even working as it should. What was meant to be an achievement in motor history has turned into a meme. A reminder of how large visions, when badly done, can disintegrate, physically. For Elon, this truck wasn't just another product. It was a flex. A statement. Proof that he could bend the future to his will. But here's the harsh truth. Instead of redefining transportation, the Cybertruck has landed in the repair shop, and in some cases, off the road entirely. And it's not a minor glitch we're talking about. This is a major embarrassment. The same guy who is going to colonize Mars is now sitting back and observing his flagship car get recalled all over America. Quietly. Methodically. Recalled like a bad box of cereal. And why? Because the panels, the ones he swore were invincible, are peeling off. Not after 10 years. Not after a wreck. But while cruising down the highway at top speed. Picture that. You're cruising along the interstate in your high-tech tank. You look in the mirror and find a piece of your car streaming behind you like a tacky sticker. That's not breakthrough. That's a catastrophe just waiting to materialize. Things get worse. Those iconic angular panels? The ones that gave the truck its aggressive spaceship on wheels look? They're glued on. Literally. Glued. As an adhesive. Not welded. Not bolted. Just stuck there like a kid's school project. We're talking about cold-rolled stainless steel, the same material Musk uses on his SpaceX rockets, and it's being held together with something you'd find in a craft drawer. Let that sink in. The Mars-conquering truck can't handle I-405. That is not only irony. That's a total breakdown of execution. On March 20, 2025, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration let the bomb drop. Almost 47,000 Cybertrucks, all of them produced between November 2023 and February 2025, were recalled. Not for a software malfunction. Not for a light problem. But because a key structural component was detaching mid-drive. It's the can-rail trim. It's along the roof. It defines the silhouette. It's one of the things that make the Cybertruck the Cybertruck. And now, it's taking flight, becoming deadly projectiles. One blow of the wind. One bounce on the road. And boom, it's aloft. That's not something cosmetic. That's a public safety risk. And Tesla? They've admitted to it. Kind of. They claim only 1% of the trucks are involved. But they're recalling all of them. 100%. Now think about it. Why would they do that if the issue was truly that minor? Because it's not minor. And this is not the first red flag on that. Previously, Tesla was having a problem with the accelerator pedal. It would stick. Drivers complained about accelerating from 0 to 60 in fewer than 3 seconds, with no means of bringing it to halt. That is frightening. And prior to that? Random activation and deactivation of windshield wipers. Like the truck's mind was alive. It's not a bad day. It's a trend. Tesla's always been boundary pushing. That's its charm. Being different is sexy. But when you begin slapping glue on places where bolts belong, that's not counterculture. That's crazy. That's not brilliance. That's betting people's lives. The fans believed. That's what makes this so heartbreaking. Because Tesla isn't a car company anymore. It's a creed. People don't drive Teslas. They worship. They defend on the internet. They get the logo tattooed. They proselytize to their friends. Having a Tesla was going to mean having a stake in the future. But now, the future's crashing at 75 miles an hour. That's hard to swallow. And when that level of blind trust begins to erode, the fallout extends beyond cars. It strikes the stock, the trust, the brand. In 2025 alone, the stock of Tesla fell more than 40%. That's not market fluctuation. That's an earthquake. And the bill to repair the Cybertruck fiasco? It could reach $1 billion, experts estimate. $1 billion, to fix the mess, to calm investors and attempt to regain the public. That's the cost of bad planning. Let's discuss the stainless steel casing. Elon overhyped it as an engineering wonder. 3 millimeters thick. Corrosion-proof. Nickel and chromium mixed to perfection. Designed to withstand anything. Made to last forever. But here's the question nobody asked. Once you warp the future, how do you prevent it from disintegrating? Apparently the answer is glue. And you can sense the frustration. The betrayal. People didn't enroll for this. They enrolled for excellence. For the edge. For the bragging rights of owning something no one else did. And now, they're embarrassed. You want another bombshell? Let's go to the UK. January 2025. Greater Manchester. Police pull over a Cybertruck from the highway. Not for speeding. Not for emissions. But because the truck was not certified. It lacked a certificate of conformity. It did not meet even the most elementary road safety standards. What? Because it's too large. At more than 2.2 meters wide and almost 7,000 pounds, you can't even drive it legally with a regular license. You require a C1 commercial license, the same one to drive delivery trucks. Most Cybertruck purchasers didn't realize that. They thought they were purchasing a car. It turns out they purchased a truck they're not even permitted to drive. That's just the start. British laws mandate that vehicles have rounded, soft edges to reduce damage and accidents. But the Cybertruck? It's pointed. Razor pointed. If it runs someone over, it won't just hurt them. It might seriously maim or kill. Regulators in the UK are labeling it a pedestrian death trap. And it's not only pointed edges. That big full-size light bar across the front? It's a blinder. Too bright. Too low on the mount. It's not enhancing visibility. It's compromising safety. Other motorists are getting flashed in the face. And that's not hip. That's irresponsible. And while that stolen Cybertruck was parked in a Tesla service center, events took another dark turn. It was spray-painted. Painted with obscenities. Vandalized. The message was clear as day: the public is losing patience. Something that was once admired is now being ridiculed. And perhaps that's the most telling sign of all. Because when your icon of the future is the punchline, when your fans begin to doubt what they once stood up for with their entire chest, that's when you realize something has changed. It's not about one truck. It's about momentum. About trust. About whether the world's most hyped car manufacturer can keep pace with its own hype. The Cybertruck was meant to reign supreme. Instead, it's blowing up. Not on fire but on faith. Subtly, bit by bit, the illusion is shattering. And now, everyone is watching, waiting to see what next falls off. It's not solely the UK that the Cybertruck is running into roadblocks. Over here in Ireland, even small cars have trouble driving on the country's narrow, curvy roads. Try to fit a nearly 4-ton stainless steel monstrosity through a small village street. It's like driving a tank through a medieval city square. The roads weren't constructed for something that large. And that doesn't even take into account the weight regulations. In Europe, a normal driver's license, AB license, just lets you drive cars up to 3.5 tons. The Cybertruck? It already tests the limit. Fill it up with stuff, people, or even just a large breakfast and you're suddenly against the law. You've crossed the threshold. And what would have been a drive becomes a legal gamble. One wrong turn and you're in hot water. And things are not much brighter down under. Australia is a left-hand drive nation. The Cybertruck? Designed for right-hand drive. That alone is enough to render it incompatible with domestic traffic laws. But wait. The exterior of the Cybertruck is so hard, so unyielding that it's actually unsafe. If it strikes an animal, say a kangaroo, which occurs frequently in outback Australia, the truck can be okay, but the kangaroo is now a lethal projectile. Not only dangerous for you, dangerous for everybody else on the road. Great durability, until it is a weapon. That's the silent trade-off nobody discusses. Globally, Tesla pitched the Cybertruck as a vision. A universal truck for the modern world. A vehicle to take over roads from Texas to Tokyo. But what we're seeing instead is rejection. Quiet, steady rejection. In Australia, in Ireland, in Germany, nations are saying no. Not because they despise progress, but because the truck just doesn't fit. It's too large, too heavy, too foreign. It doesn't comply with the regulations. It doesn't comply with the streets. The irony? This truck was meant to rule the world. And now it's being benched by the rules of that world. And even if, somehow, you do manage to get it onto foreign roads, good luck keeping it charged. Take the Australian outback. You're driving through miles of empty land. There's no charging station in sight. And then the battery dies. You're stuck in the middle of nowhere. With a $100,000 piece of technology that's now just a fancy metal tent. That's the dark truth. The Cybertruck might be ready for the future, But the world isn't ready for it. And then there's China. They didn't technically outlaw it, but they didn't need to. With stringent safety rules, city vehicle limitations, and pedestrian regulations, Tesla recognized the handwriting on the wall. In 2024, they withdrew their petition to introduce the Cybertruck into the Chinese market. That's significant. Tesla realized they wouldn't be approved. They realized the truck wasn't compatible with China's concept of safety and regulation. So they retreated. Discreetly. Strategically. And that's when the larger picture is visible. What America refers to as innovation, the rest of the world perceives as recklessness. What American enthusiasts hail as risky, global regulators mark as hazardous. The Cybertruck is not merely a vehicle. It's a conflict of cultures on wheels. Even in its own country, things are not good. Some of the Tesla drivers are beginning to realize the heat. Their trucks, their own pride and joy, are getting keyed, spray-painted, vandalized. Not for how they are driving, but for what they stand for. A political statement. A symbol of controversy. Particularly after Elon Musk's tumultuous brief stint in the Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency. That decision didn't sit well with all. Neither did the Dogecoin hijinks. And when pictures began circulating with allegations, denied or otherwise, that Musk made a Nazi-style salute at an event, the criticism was immediate. The Cybertruck, once regarded as the epitome of tech disruption, became a target overnight. And not just figuratively. Literally. In towns such as New York, individuals have been apprehended for graffiti tagging parked Cybertrucks. Spray painting them. Breaking windows. Posting furious messages. Backlash in Europe is even more severe. Tesla sales in Germany fell 59%. Sales plummeted 12% in 1 month in the UK. That's not a decline. That's a free fall. And out in front of all those Tesla dealerships? Protesters. Holding signs. Chanting slogans. Connecting Musk to the larger cultural schism that's creeping around the world. It's not about cars anymore. It's about identity. Values. Power. And stuck right in the middle of it, Cybertruck owners. They went in thinking they were purchasing the future. But instead they've invested in a controversy. And they're paying the cost. Some claim it's still a wonder. A daring vision. A game-changer in car design. Others? They perceive a dystopian tank for an end-of-the-world future. Cold. Uninviting. Arrogant. Motivated more by ego than by compassion. And the owners? They're caught in between. Some simply wanted a hip truck. Something unique. Some had faith in the tech. Some had faith in Elon. But today? They're getting flipped off on the freeway. Getting tickets left on their windshields. Being informed to go back to Mars with Elon. In the United Kingdom, officials responsible for safety have begun to refer to the Cybertruck as a giant can opener. That isn't compliment. That's mocking. That's humiliating. And on the web? Forget it. The conversations have gone toxic. People are arguing. Fighting. Doxing. Owners are creating burner accounts solely to talk about their cars without being assaulted. This is no longer a car launch. This is a war zone. And the financial cost? It's savage. Since January, Tesla shares have dropped 42%. That's more than $300 billion erased from the board. Experts estimate the recall alone, already affecting more than 46,000 trucks, could cost hundreds of millions. But the actual harm? It's brand harm. Trust harm. The kind that doesn't appear on a spreadsheet but sears deep into the public psyche. People aren't just losing confidence in the Cybertruck, they're doubting Tesla itself. And the issue is expanding. Tesla had envisioned spreading the cost of Cybertruck development over the world market. Sell a few million units in the US, Europe, Asia, and Australia. But with foreign markets shutting their doors? That fantasy is over. Now Tesla must attempt to recoup more than $1 billion in development expense from the American market alone. And to compound matters, Elon Musk is preoccupied. He used to be the guy who slept on the factory floor. Figured out problems himself. Took personal risks to get things done. Now, he's got SpaceX, formerly Twitter, Neuralink, and political ventures to juggle. His attention is everywhere, where it needs to be least, Tesla. Meanwhile, Ford, Rivian, and other competitors are moving fast. They're launching electric trucks that don't break laws. That don't blind other drivers. That don't fall apart at high speeds. They're filling the gaps that Tesla used to dominate. Ford's F-150 Lightning is already a hit. Rivian's R1T? Gaining traction. And legacy automakers are waking up fast. They're focused. They're moving. They're learning from Tesla's mistakes, and capitalizing on them. Tesla's supremacy is threatened. And not only due to negative publicity, but due to superior alternatives. And now, even major investors are getting jumpy. Institutional investors are beginning to quietly cash out, selling off their Tesla holdings. Not because they believe the company is done, but because they're losing faith in Elon. His split focus, his mercurial temperament, his willingness to disobey regulatory guidelines and safety standards. And Tesla's cash balance? Still huge, but not unlimited. Supply chain issues, higher mineral prices, production holdups. They're spending that cash quicker than ever before. Wall Street is conflicted. Some think Tesla is merely experiencing a speed bump, a classic flash of volatility in an otherwise extraordinary ride. Others? They believe this marks the start of something greater to come, the initial crack in what was formerly an impenetrable fortress. The truth lies probably in between. Tesla remains powerful, remain innovative, remain immensely popular. But it's hemorrhaging, and the Cybertruck is the visible wound. So what is the verdict? Is the Cybertruck a flop? Or is it too soon? The materials are genuine. The innovation is ambitious. That 30 times cold-rolled stainless steel is no joke. It's the same material SpaceX uses in rockets. Strong, durable, weather-resistant. On paper, it's genius. But in real life, there's a gap. A gap between the idea and the implementation. A gap between what can be done and what can be done practically. And currently, that gap is consuming the Cybertruck whole. What was meant to be a step forward is turning increasingly into a slip. The ambition is enormous. That's obvious. Elon is trying to revolutionize transportation, reimagine mobility, rebuild the means by which the world gets around. But that road is rocky. It's uphill. And the Cybertruck, rather than pioneering the way, is becoming a warning story. Because bold is not enough. The world does not necessarily pay homage to risk. The world pays attention to outcomes. Tesla's audacity has never been doubted. The company lives on risk-taking, on pursuing the unachievable. But with the Cybertruck, that drive may have run into a brick wall. Because for all the hype about its aesthetic and materials, the chasm between imagination and execution has never been greater. You see, it takes 30 times cold-rolled stainless steel to construct the truck. Sounds impressive. And it is. At least on paper. It's strong. Tough. It's space-grade. But in reality, that's where things begin to go haywire. Because constructing a vehicle out of this level of steel isn't just challenging, it's a logistical nightmare. The Cybertruck never was a terrible idea. It was an extremist one. And sometimes the same thing. The future requires risk-takers, visionaries, people willing to shatter the mold. But shatter it too hard, too fast, and it breaks. Tesla has done amazing things. Nobody questions that. But the Cybertruck is beginning to prove that even the most brilliant ideas require guardrails. That even visionaries have to operate within boundaries, not only of imagination but of infrastructure, regulation, and public trust. This truck, positioned as a revolution in motion, is becoming Tesla's most erratic bet. On the surface, the Cybertruck appears to be something straight out of a science fiction film. A steel beast. Futuristic. Unapologetic. But behind that steel exterior is a completely different set of issues. As opposed to typical trucks, the Cybertruck's exoskeleton is not for show. It is the frame. That frame, that sharp, rigid chassis, keeps everything intact. And it's not flexible. That makes production highly complicated. Musk himself acknowledged it. You can't bend this steel like you can regular materials. Stamping it? Not a chance. The sharp corners? They weren't a styling preference, they were a necessity. That was the only way to get the steel to behave. Even sitting on the panels has been challenging. Welding heavy stainless steel isn't something you learn overnight. So Tesla became resourceful. They employed industrial adhesives, glue. Good glue, I'm sure. But glue. Consider that. A 7,000-pound car. Built to last. Powered by advanced technology. Held together with adhesives. That must withstand years of vibration, heat, cold, speed, moisture. And it's falling apart. Not in a laboratory. Not on a test track. But on actual highways. With actual people on board. Aerospace engineers de-utilize adhesives. But they combine them with bolts, screws, safety features, redundancy. Tesla didn't take that path. Or at least not sufficiently. And now it's paying the price. The glue is failing. And with it so is the trust. So now the question is the Cybertruck reparable? Can Tesla remake it to conform to world norms? Technically yes. They could round off the edges, mold the body softer, rearrange the light bar, lighten it up, go right-hand drive, align it with European, Australian, Chinese laws. But the thing is, accomplishing all that would be truly expensive, probably over $1 billion. And worse, it would destroy the truck's soul, because the Cybertruck is no longer just a truck. It's a symbol, a metaphor, a reflection. It mirrors everything: the ambition, the arrogance, the hope, the blind spots. It's American ingenuity at its most extreme. But symbols are delicate, and this one is cracking. Let's discuss numbers. More than 46,000 trucks recalled. Not due to optional equipment, but due to structural problems. Because the panels are coming off. Because the trim is separating. Because the adhesive is not sticking. That's not a software fix. That's a rebuild. And while the US market is clinging on, the rest of the world is walking away. China? Europe? Rejecting it. Australia? Unroadworthy. The same nations Tesla was pinning its hopes on are now slamming the door. And what about American buyers? They're irritated. Not so much at the product, but at the baggage. Vandalism. Key scratches. Writings on windshields. Go back to Mars. Tech bro tank. What used to be cool now is polarizing. What used to be cutting edge is now contentious. The truck was meant to be bulletproof. Emotionally, socially, technologically. Instead, it's become a target. And that counts, because a product isn't merely steel and software. It's story. It's meaning. It's emotion. And at the moment, the Cybertruck is wearing the wrong ones. Critics call it a tech ego trip. A display of strength without mission. A war machine designed for combat zones, not suburbs. And the criticism isn't subtle. It's fierce. Fuming. Ridiculing. Some argue Tesla can just double down. Stay local. Repair what's damaged. Rebuild credibility here first before expanding abroad. But that shortens their horizon. Their bottom line. Their ambition. Others propose a complete overhaul. A Cybertruck 2.0 that is compliant, critics-pleasing, and adaptable to international roads. But in doing so, you risk alienating what little fanbase the truck has. Because if the Cybertruck becomes conventional, what is it? And the other option? Abort the project. Stealthily. Gradually. Let it quietly disappear. Move on. Act as if it never existed. None of these options are great. But one thing is certain: Tesla can't delay indefinitely. The clock is ticking. The investors are watching. Markets are responding. And each day that the company lingers, the issue becomes worse. Because this isn't a matter of sales. It's a matter of philosophy. Tesla sold us tomorrow. But the tomorrow doesn't fall apart at 70 miles per hour. It doesn't get banned in cities. It doesn't get ridiculed in parking lots. So Tesla now must pose the toughest question. How much are they willing to warp the future? Just to fit it? The Cybertruck was intended to disrupt our notion of what a car is. And in doing that, it was a success. But it also disrupted something else: our patience. Because good design is not about being different. It's about being better, safer, smarter, real. And despite all its might, the Cybertruck wasn't ready for the road. The lesson here is larger than a truck. It's about the boundaries of speed, of disruption, of ambition. Innovation has to be tried, not just dreamed up. Prototypes are not guarantees. And that's where Tesla fell short. They had the technology. They had the buzz. But they lost sight of the road, the rules, the people. Now they're paying the price. The tale isn't finished. Tesla still has juice, power, influence, genius. But this chapter? It's a cautionary tale. A pause for thought. Because when the future finally catches up, it has to get it right. And currently the Cybertruck doesn't. But something deeper is going on here. Something greater than sales graphs or recall figures. A change. The Cybertruck may have failed to conquer roads, but it's conquering discussion. It's making us think, question, rethink. What should vehicles be like? How should progress feel? Who gets to dictate what's permissible? Engineers or legislators? Dreamers or commuters? These are uncomfortable questions. And perhaps that's the actual power of the Cybertruck. Not in what it is, but in what it makes us confront. Because if we ever only build what fits, nothing ever changes. So maybe this wasn't a failure. Maybe it was a spark, an experiment, an explosion of possibility. And yeah, maybe it burned a little too hot. But that's how boundaries are tested. That's how progress works. So if you're still here, still watching, still curious, you're not just an observer.